We are live, baby. Welcome back to the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel for a little UFC action. UFC 304. We got Muhammad. We got Edwards here fighting on this main card pay-per-view. And I got my boy Dan with me. Hopefully, at some point, we'll get Christine in the house. But Dan, for right now, two-man booth, and hopefully we can pick some winners for the people. How you doing on this Saturday morning?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. I'm excited for this card. I think this card's it's going to be a good pay-per-view card. A lot of fights too, which makes it interesting for DFS, right? Because we got a lot of fights that we can go through and pick from on a 14 fight card. So that's going to kind of mess around the ownership, I think, which I know you'll get into. Some guys will end up getting overlooked big time. And I know it's something that you specifically will try and capitalize on when we talk through these fights.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of edges on this card. There were some that I noticed immediately. Doing tape this week was way more fun than previous weeks. I'm really looking forward to this card. We got some really great matchups. Yeah, man, this is just I've seen some people saying that like this isn't the most like name value. Like what do you want after the last few weeks? You know, like this is a world better than anything we've had recently. So
well, and we got obviously the Muhammad Edwards fight, which we'll get to, and I think that's a very controversial fight because I think, you know, whatever side you're on, the other side's just dumb, right? So it's like, how can you be on this guy's side? You're an idiot. And then like the same thing goes for the other side. I feel like it's one of those main fights where it's just whatever side you're on, you feel very strongly about that side and you're ready to like go to war over that side. It makes me feel though like when Usman and Edwards fought, right? And it's kind of like, especially the second time, because the first time, Dan, I remember it. I did bet Leon, and immediately watching that fight, I'm like, oh shit, I might be on the wrong guy, right? He's getting pieced up, and then all of a sudden he lands the big shot, and everyone's like, okay, and he wins a fight that he probably wouldn't have won, right? If he doesn't land that shot. And then the second time they fought, everyone's like, I remember this vividly because it was actually at the Run Pure Sports party that we hold every year during like I think the March Madness time it was. Mm-hmm. And I remember going around telling everyone, Leon Edwards, it's a lock. Just literally as much money as you can get, bet on Leon Edwards. He's going to win. And I remember people being like, are you kidding me? Did you watch the first like 3.5 rounds of the Usman Edwards first fight? He was getting destroyed, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes out there and wins. And it's, in my opinion, it looked pretty easy. And everyone's like, okay, so, where are we at with these fights? Because it's like, it's the same thing over and over and people don't understand. Like at the end of the day, it's a fight. And I think both sides, you can make a good case for. I have my opinion and we'll get to it, but I think it's one of those fights that once we get to it, the chat's going to be all over it one way or the other.
Yeah, there's a lot of heat to this matchup. There's a lot of heat in Makhaev Cop. Like they're finally interesting fights with like actual good storylines, actual stakes. So like I'm excited. I'm sure chat is going to be a complete mess later. as it usually is on pay-per-view nights, but like that's part of the fun. So let's dive in, man. I'm ready.
I love it. I'm ready to go. We got some chatters already. What's going on? Where's the puppy? Jay's puppy's. I don't know if you can see him. You should be able to see him. He's literally sitting on the couch right back there, but it might be a little far away, but he's laying back there. MN, so he's there.
Chat's already
getting this here. Where's the fat guy who doesn't know anything about MMA? He's pretty sick right now. So let's stop throwing shade at our guy because he's not feeling good. So get that shit out of here with the insults and stuff like that. You can insult me if you want. Just call me short or, you can't say I'm not good looking. I mean, I am good looking, when I shave and everything like that. But right now I'm kind of a mess. I need a haircut, Dan. I need to fucking shave. Yeah, I need to shave. So, we all look like shit on this show. Whatever. We're picking winners. That's all that matters here. Please bring the puppy on live. Thanks. I'll try at some point. He'll probably walk over here. But yeah, we got to keep the good vibes today. So hopefully we can keep the good vibes going and some semblance of respect, right, Dan? I mean, you can make fun of us a little bit, but you know, just a little bit of respect here. We're trying to give you winners at 11:15 on a fucking early morning Saturday before this card. So come on now. All right, let's get to the card. 14 fights here, and we start with low-level MMA, right? We got Shauna Bannon here, 8,900 on DraftKings, coming off a loss to Brazil last time out, fighting a very low-level Alice Alderene, 7,300 for Alderene. I probably fucked that name up, but 7,300 for her, and it's her first UFC fight. Dan, we were kind of talking about this fight before we got on. Crazy 14 fights, and somehow we were on this fight. Out of all the fights we could talk about, we were talking about this fight. And you were talking about her level of competition that she's fought. And I think that's a fair point to bring up, the level of competition that Alice has fought to this point. Now, she's, I think, 9-5 in her MMA career, and you'll see 5 losses. You're like, oh, shit. 2 of those losses are actually decent losses. She lost to Weili Zhang, which, honestly, she just got out-wrestled. Like, if you watch that fight, she just, like, every single time she rushed in, she actually hit her a few times, but Weili would just, level change and boom, right on her back, and it was just tough to stop. So that fight, I throw that out. And then Diana Balbito was one of the other losses, I think. So the losses weren't all like terrible. Now the wins, Dan will note, they're not the best wins, but she's finishing a lot of those wins. She's finishing them inside the distance a lot. So I do like that. And she's fighting another girl who, honestly, to me, doesn't look very good, has that karate style, which I hate. Like point fighter, really isn't very powerful. Her striking is actually bad, in my opinion. She just like runs in. She tries to set it up with the kicks and then just rushes at you. And if you have just decent footwork, you can kind of get around the striking to where you're not really worried about it. But it's the kicks. I think she can be taken down, though. She can be held down. I don't think her grappling is that good. I think Alice is actually a decent dog here. I'm going to bet Alice. I'm going to have some Alice in DFS, just a little, because she's 7,300. If she does win and puts up 75 or 80, maybe she's optimal in that scenario. So I do like the dog here. I'm going to bet the dog. I'm going to have the dog a little bit in DFS. I like it more as a bet, though. And I'm going to be very low on Shauna Bannon here. Just not a fan of her game at all. Dan, what say you?
I think all that's fair, but like the level of competition is a huge issue for me. I mean, you mentioned, let's just go back to the Balbita and Zhang fights. Both of those are nearly like 10 years ago. So I don't know how much you can really take away from that. Since then, she's just been fighting super low level competition. In her last couple wins, which there are finishes in there, but the combined record is 5-8 for her opponents. And it's, she's fighting on the Romanian regional scene, which, like, say what you will about Bannon's level of competition and her experience, but you don't really get much lower than, Romanian regionals. I think Ardeline does, like, to her credit, or a point for her, is Bannon does use that like karate kick heavy style. And I think the way to neutralize that is what Ardeline does, which is she tries to go forward. She tries to get in your face. So like, I can absolutely see a world where Ardeline just like gets up in Bannon's face and creates huge problems for her. But at the end of the day, I just favor Bannon pretty much everywhere. And if you look, when Bannon has some of her greatest successes, it's through the grappling. And I'm just not sure Ardeline is going to be able to compete in the grappling. I think if Bannon gets on top of her and gets in top position, she's going to be able to control her and ground and pound her. I think it's going to be a real problem for Ardeline. I actually have Bannon. I mean, I have Bannon projected at 8% ownership, so obviously I have her ranked pretty highly from a leverage perspective. But obviously the finishing numbers are not good at all for someone at 89. But at 8%, you can sprinkle her in and you can get over the field really easily. And I'm going to be looking to do that. I think I'm going to at least try to get to like 15 to like between 15 and 20%, just because it's more about Alderene and her deficiencies than it is about anything I really love from Bannon. But I think Bannon can really roll here.
Yeah, one other note too with Bannon is she's much better moving forward than when she's put on her back foot. And that was shown in the Brazil fight just a little bit. And Brazil, we all know, she's low volume. So she was like trying to counter a lot of the time. So she wasn't even really trying to like put her on her back foot as much. But when she did, you saw a big difference in Bannon. And that's the one thing I actually think Alice will do is she will try and put her on her foot because she is aggressive when she strikes. She will move forward. And so I actually trust that she will do that. Now, can she get a finish or dominate? That we'll see. I see Londo in the chat. He says Bannon wins inside the distance, breaks a slate 120 points. That's a nice take. Dan would love that. I'll tell you that right now.
That'd be awesome.
And then he says Bannon lock. All right. Well, Londo likes it. Dan likes it. What's the ownership on both girls? You said 8% for Bannon. What's Alice coming in at?
Alice, I've got at 14%, which makes sense.
Okay.
She's 7,300. You're gonna want to save salary on this slate, and like just to get it out of the way, no leaving salary this week. I know that was a discussion last week with a lot of closely lined fights and a lot of very live dogs, but still the optimal ended up only leaving like 1,100, which is in the range that I usually leave it. Like 48.5, I think is pretty good. So,
yeah, you said that on the show actually, and that kind of proves your point even more because that was a perfect slate to leave salary on the table, like the most ideal, and it wasn't like a massive. Now it was still 1,100. That's still a decent amount, but it wasn't like 2,500 or 2K. It's still a big difference.
And it's like even more to the point, like I believe Cody Gibson was in the optimal, and there was a lot of talk about him, well, he sucks and he's 9,300 and blah blah blah. And we talked about, like
I didn't like him to be honest, though.
But we did talk about, like spend the money, like don't leave.
Yeah.
Spend the money, get up to a guy like Gibson who's overpriced, who can still.
100%. We did talk about that on the show last week. I do think that this, regardless of the side you're on, I think this is a good DFS fight. I like both girls at those ownerships. Low level MMA, Dan. We always talk about low level MMA, like anything, especially these women's low level MMA, like anything can happen. So I do think it's a good idea to keep both these. I'll have fades for sure on this card where I don't like, either fighter or at least one in certain fights. I do think these two, though, you should leave at those ownerships. I think they do have paths to upside. All right, let's move to the next fight on this card here. Another fight, not really in love with here. I feel like it's a copy fight from, was it last week when we had the big shitty heavyweights on the card? Was it last week that I'm thinking of, Dan?
Yeah.
So this is like a carbon copy. Brezic at 7,100 and Parkin at 9,100. This is like kind of similar style, and I don't really like either of these fighters, Dan. I mean, Parkin's coming off 3 wins in a row, defeating Usman in a really close decision that, I mean, he won, but I thought it was razor thin, and I bet Parkin, and I remember being like, I don't know if he won. I think he won, but he could have lost. It was that close. And, Bresky, where, he beat Walker, who I think we just realized real fast that he's not it. So what are you doing here with this fight, Dan? I feel like for DFS, I'm not going to be very high on these two big boys, going at it. But is this a fight that you want to get leverage on?
No, not really. Earlier in chat today, Boynton asked me, like, for 20 max, do you have any fades? And Bretsky was one of them. I just there's really nothing to like here. Like, you know, you talked about Parkin, how he's like going to close decisions with Usman. Bretsky's just getting knocked out, man. Like, he just got savagely knocked out, or maybe not savagely, but hilariously knocked out by Waldo Cortez Acosta, who is like not a power puncher. He really like went to the wire with Walter Walker, which is obviously like a heinously bad look. Yeah, I don't see anything I like about Bretsky. His biggest weakness, I mean, which is not unusual for heavyweights, is his wrestling. His takedown defense is terrible. His getup is terrible. Parkin, on the other hand, you know, Parkin is not. He's not super exciting, you know. He's kind of a more point fighty guy, but he is legitimately better everywhere, including the wrestling and grappling. Like, you saw Parkin, he is capable of getting takedowns. He did it in the Machado fight, which I know a lot of people thought he lost, but he was still able to secure takedowns. I feel like he gets one takedown on Bretsky, it could be, you know, could be fight over. The other thing I like about Parkin, and this is kind of more like, this is a little more narrative-y, not super solid, but like, he trains with Tom Aspinall, and I was watching, I don't know if it was embedded, it was maybe the preview, but Aspinall said he's only training with heavyweights for this championship fight camp, meaning he's getting a lot of rounds in with Parkin, which means Parkin's getting a lot of rounds in with him. So Parkin's also very young for a heavyweight, so you have to imagine that that kind of training and experience is only going to further his game. I think he has like a really good base skill set, and if he continues to improve, like, he's gonna be a really serviceable heavyweight, and I think he just rolls here. So while I'm not interested,
crazy, the line, like, plus 100 for decision for Mick Parkin, for big boys, like for these two big boys, like that's telling you a lot.
Yeah, he's got, you know, it's not the strongest inside the distance number, but, you know, plus 180 for a guy who we don't know to be a power puncher at all. I think it says a lot more about Bretsky than it does about Parkin, but, you know, you got to take that into account. So, you know, if Parkin's going to come in around like 15, 16%, which is what I have him projected at, like, I don't mind getting like 20, 25, to be perfectly honest. 25 might be a little high. I'm so used to us doing these cards with like 11, 12 fights. So, yeah. Which brings up another point, just overall, like, ownership is going to be spread out today, like much more than we're used to. So in a lot of ways, it's one of those slates where it's like, play the best plays. It's like any other sport. It's like, the bigger the slate, it's like the more other people are going to try. Let other people make mistakes is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah. You're pretty much saying, yeah, exactly. It's like NBA, I think, is the best sport for this analogy, pretty much, because like there's so many great plays on those type of slates where you're just like, hey, listen, you don't have to get cute with like 5-6 plays. You can play, you know, 6 or 7 of the best plays and then just filter in like one oddball player, and that's enough to be unique, you know, in that style. And so this is probably one of those. You know, Parkin, I think the way he gets there in DFS would be takedowns in control time and maybe a finish. Like, maybe could find a finish on the ground. He's not like a power puncher, though, even though he's a big boy, obviously. Like, it's not really his game to find like a power punch. So, you know, I think if he gets him out, it's either ground and pound or somehow like a submission, even like something on the ground. I think it would be. I don't think he's going to do it on the feet. I think he needs like the takedown and then a finish from there. But all right, we're both on Parkin. It seems like Dan's a little higher for DFS than I am. I'm pretty low on this fight in general. We're both fading Bretsky at 7,100. Let's move to another fight here. We got Sam Patterson, 9,300 for Sam Patterson here, coming off a win last time out, submission win in round 1. Fighting Kiefer Crosby, coming off of a loss to Kevin Juzette. 6,900 for Crosby here on DraftKings. All right, Dan, I have a very strong take on this fight. I think this is a good fight for DFS. I think that both guys have a chance to finish one another, and it could be early. But I'll start with Patterson. Patterson at 9,300. Like, I like him more than Parkin. I like him more than some of the other guys because I do think he's got a good chance to finish inside the distance and early too. But this guy, like, he is not good on the feet. And every time, which obviously fights start on the feet, every time I watch this dude almost fight on the feet, he gets hit and he gets hurt. Even in his contender series fight, you'll see him like kind of like not fully drop because the cage was right next to him, but he like fell back against the cage like pretty bad and was hurt for a second. The things with all these fights that he's winning, outside of obviously Ashmoon, who knocked him out, which I was one of very few people who came on a show just like this and actually said that he would knock him out because this dude sucks on the feet and his chin, he gets hurt constantly. But the one thing that I found with his wins is that he's finding ways to reverse or get to the ground. All right. And what I'm talking about is, like, if you take the last fight against Linnes, what happened was he found his neck off the cage. He grabbed his neck off of like a clinch situation, got him down, and then found a sub because he tried like a judo type toss or something like that as they were going down, right? And he got reversed. Like, there are certain things that happen. It was the same thing in the Contender Series fight. He found a way off of a grappling situation where he reversed it in round one. He almost got a submission in round one. Then in round two, it was like almost the exact same scenario. And then he found a way to finish him in round two off of a clinch takedown situation. So this dude is not a takedown expert. He's not shooting, right? He's not a wrestler, but he finds ways into the grappling exchanges, and he's so long, and he is skilled once he gets into the grappling. So my take here is that this fight's going to finish, I think, early. I think in the first round and a half, it's going to go under. It's going to finish early. I think Crosby has a chance to knock him out just because of how bad, and I've seen Patterson hurt multiple times, those overhand rights. Like, I just think he has a path there. If not, I think Crosby has a path of getting submitted. Just like he got submitted, I could see that happening where they get him up against the cage, clinch situation. Patterson finds his way down, whether it's grabbing his neck. He's got those small, like, even though he's tall, he's lanky, right? So those little arms, they fit right under the neck. He goes for the neck instantly in those situations and then finds his way to the grappling from there. And so I think it's either a submission for Patterson early or a knockout for Crosby. I like this fight to finish. I'm going to be heavy on it for DFS for both paths, but I'm picking Crosby just because I hate Patterson.
I agree with everything you said, except I'm picking Patterson. But it's a super binary matchup, and you can make a case for either side, really. It's like you said, either Crosby is knocking Patterson out, or Patterson is, once this thing hits the mat, Crosby is in deep shit because he has nothing. He has zero grappling skills. Crosby is hyper one-dimensional. He wants to come forward. He wants to brawl. He wants to like swing it out. And killer be kill type guy. Those are the kinds of fights we love to target. Patterson is like the Cody Gibson play of the week because he's going to be under-owned for his inside the distance number. And again, people are scoffing. They're saying 9,300 for Sam Patterson. This guy sucks. And they're right, but that doesn't matter when we're playing DFS and shooting for upside. So yeah, it's really simple. I love both sides of this fight. To me, Crosby is probably the best punt on the board. I have Patterson projected to come in at 29%, Crosby at 14. I'm gonna get over on both of those easily. I think Patterson.
Cody Gibson sucked, and he was like 9,300, and he smashed last slate, right? So, and we got Mick Parkin at 91, Shauna Bannon at 89. Who else is expensive that sucks? I mean, like, there's a ton every single week. There's a ton of dudes that end up being like 9K range, and we're like, they suck. But also you got to put into account who they're fighting, right? And it's right. Like, well, if they have a path to upside, that's all that matters here. And I agree with you. Patterson sucks, but he still has a path to where he could score big. I just think Crosby's going to connect with one of those big shots, and I think he's going to put him out. But
I don't think Crosby can keep it standing for much longer than maybe the first couple minutes of the first. And as soon as it goes down, he's
the only thing I will say is Kevin Jousset, who I think is much better than Sam Patterson and Crosby. His jab was really hurting him. He was doing things on the feet that I just don't see Sam Patterson being able to do, and then found the way. So it wasn't because Crosby connected a few times against Jousset. It wasn't like it was totally one-sided. Crosby connected a few times. And I just don't know if Sam Patterson has that jab or, any type of power that's going to concern Crosby moving in. But that's that for DFS. Like we said, we're both pretty high on this fight. It seems like chat likes this fight too. Vogelman said Patterson Crosby is locked in for me, 60%. I like it. I like the fight. Londo likes Crosby to break the slate, KO. Londo's got some hot takes. I like this dude. I like him. And I wasn't on the first hot take, even though I'm going to play some Shauna in DFS, but I like him. He's got some hot takes here. So Crosby finding the chin.
I'm with it.
My guy John, Crosby finding the chin one time. I like it. I like it a lot. Chat's ready to go today. It's good. All right, let's go to the next fight here. This fight's gonna be interesting because we got Muhammad Makhaev 8,400 against Manell Kopp 7,800. Dan, I don't know if you saw the heated back. They couldn't even stand in front of each other. Makhaev's throwing water bottles at them, trying to find them. They're being held back by guys twice their size, just massive dudes just holding these guys back. But this fight could be just absolute fire here. And I know it's not Manell Kopp's style or anything like that. He is a precision striker. Muhammad Makhaev, obviously a just wrestler, just absolute nonstop wrestler. Not as good striking, of course, as Kopp is, but I think this could be a good fight for DFS. I think Muhammad Makhaev with the nonstop wrestling, I think he finds a way to get it done. But the one thing I don't love is it feels so heated. I'm worried he might try and strike with Kopp for a little bit. It worries me a little bit. Please don't do that, because if you do that, that is your biggest chance to lose this fight. And I'm a little worried about that, but hopefully once he gets hit once in the face, he's okay, screw this. I gotta go to the wrestling real fast. So my pick's going to be Makhaev. I'm going to go with Makhaev inside the distance. I think he finds a submission round 2 or something like that. I think it's a round 2 sub, but what do you think, Dan?
Yeah, this matchup has a lot of heat to it. I actually, both of these guys, the lead up's been so crazy, and Kopp is so unreliable that I actually left this fight for very last to break down, because I was like, if any fight gets scratched, it's going to be this one. But luckily it didn't. I think it's going to be really entertaining. And just a brief tangent, there's part of me that thinks that this is sort of contrived between the two of them. This is some WWE style shit where they're trying to really raise the profile of the fight, because they for both of these guys, I think ideally in their minds, this is a number 1 contender fight to go on to face Pantoja. And it's really shaky ground for both of them. They can both sort of lay claim to it, but it's not super solid. So I think maybe that might be playing into it a little bit. But anyway, get away from that actual fight stuff. This is another pretty binary matchup. Kopp is obviously worlds better than Makhaev on the feet. If this thing stays on the feet for any length of time, I think Kopp has a really good chance of putting him out. So I pick Kopp inside the distance. All fights start on the feet. Makhaev, it's dicey. I don't feel super, super confident. I'm just taking the plus money on Kopp essentially. But, Kopp has pretty decent takedown defense. I think he can hang. We saw Alex Perez hang with Makhaev. I know Makhaev was sick, dealing with some weight cut stuff. Still in all, I thought it's pretty underwhelming performance, and that's the last time we saw him. However, if it does get to the ground, Makhaev is an excellent grappler, and I think he has a really good chance to also submit Cobb. So I think we're going to see a finish here. I'm picking Cobb, but again, super binary matchup where each guy's strength is the other's weakness. So I think those are the type of fights that you really like to target. The one hang up I have is Makhaev's ownership is looking to be around like 35%. That's a little high for me. I'm probably going to come in under that. I know that the wrestling and grappling upside is immense, but for one thing, I'm picking Cobb to win. For another, that's just more ownership that I like to eat for someone who doesn't have as good inside the distance numbers. He is cheap though. This fight is really well priced. So I'm not going to go overboard trying to fade it. Like we said before, ownership's going to be spread out. So a lot of the best spots, there are plenty of other leverage points is kind of what I'm getting at. This fight does rate out terribly for me due to the low inside the distance numbers and the high ownership, but I'm going to be forcing a bit more into my lineups than I'm getting initially.
Yeah, I like this fight a little bit more than your numbers may suggest too. I will say plus 420 for Muhammad Makhaev by submission is a nice number for someone like him. And on the other side, Manell Kopp plus 500 on FanDuel, TKO. So if you like that side, that number is pretty nice at plus 500. DK right now it's 450. So
fast hands and sick power, man. Like if you watch I think last time we saw him was when he fought Felipe dos Santos. Santos has like a granite fucking chin, man, because Kopp was landing some like bombs on him and he just like would not go away or go down. And if anybody's concerned about Kopp's perceived lack of volume, I think Makhaev will be putting pressure on him and will kind of be like forcing the issue. And I think Kopp is going to have to, if Kopp's going to win, he's going to have to strike and he's going to have to do it with volume and power.
Yeah, he's definitely going to have to put in more volume than I think we're used to seeing naturally from him. It also shows too, one thing I always think about with Kopp is they liked him so much. His first fight in the UFC was against Pantoja. Second was against Nicolau. He lost those two fights, but that kind of tells you the UFC thinks he's really good, right? When your first two fights are to guys like that. The UFC definitely
Horizon where he was just ending dudes,
Yeah.
So he's got a lot of very high level experience. He's a pretty elite striker.
I kind of agree with D'Lo too. You brought up the last fight, 3 of 20 on takedowns against Perez, but still handled them. That's kind of how I feel too, regardless of what he say. He had staph or something like that. He had an infection or something that kind of bugged him or whatever. But regardless, whether he did or didn't, that's how I kind of view it too. Is like, man, he only got 3 of 20, but it's the nonstop pressure and pace where it's like, this guy's not going to get to, he's just going to keep doing what he does. Hopefully, I hope this like anger doesn't like cause him to not do that shit and to try and like throw at this dude. But, got to go with what you see. You like Kopp. I like Makhaev. We're split there. Let's go to the next fight. I do not think we will be split on this fight, at least from what I saw, some of what you said in our Discord earlier today. We've got Preston Parsons, 8,600 for Parsons on DK, coming off a win against Semmelsberger, against Oban Elliott, coming off his decision win against Woodburn last time out. 7,600 for Oban Elliott. Dan, I'm going to let you start off on Mr. Oban Elliott. What do you see with this fight?
Yeah, this guy, Oban Elliott, is not good. You mentioned going to decision with Val Woodburn. There were multiple points in that fight where he was looking like he was going to lose. He's just not – he's very unexceptional everywhere. It looks like he's going to be catching a lot of ownership as well. I legitimately just think that Parsons is better everywhere. He's better in the striking, grappling, wrestling. Parsons has like this pressure style. He's going to be moving forward on Elliott. And I just think that's going to cause major problems. Parsons also stronger level of competition. he's shown better cardio. Like, as we mentioned in the Woodburn fight, like Elliott seemed to be slowing down quite a bit at the end of that fight, if my memory is correct. Parsons, on the other hand, can push like a hard pressure style pace, heavy grappling pace for a full 15 minutes. I said it to one of my friends earlier today. I can't believe one of my favorite bets of the day is a guy named Preston, but here we are. Yeah, I really like Parsons. He's going to be high owned too, but I'm happy to eat that ownership. They're like 30 and 24 respectively, Parsons and Elliott. So I'm probably going to be lower on Elliott and even or a bit higher on Parsons.
Yeah, and I kind of feel the same way as you, so I don't want to just like say exactly what you said, because that's pretty much what I was going to say anyway. So I agree with you 100% on this fight. Got to bring in our girl, Showdown Christine. She's back. Christine, we're on the Oban Elliott fight here. So me and Dan kind of see it similarly. We like Preston Parsons in this fight against Oban Elliott. Do you have a different take, or are you on Preston as well?
I like Preston as well. I just think that he's going to pressure. He's going to take him down to the mat, rinse and repeat. He's averaging 9+ takedown attempts, 4 takedowns landed, 3 submission attempts per 15. Elliott is also a good wrestler in his own right, and he's coming from a good gym. He's still pretty green, but his takedown defense needs a little work. And I think it'll come down to who gets the best of the grappling exchanges, but I do like Parsons in this spot for sure.
I love it. All right, we're all on Parsons here. Finally, we get 3 for 3 on a fight. I know Christine just joined us, but me and Dan aren't always agreeing.
I thought it was at noon because we always do it at noon. And yeah, sorry.
That's all right. No, that's good. It's fine. We had to start a little early today, but we got a fight. We're 3 for 3 on here. Let's go to the next fight. We've got Modestus Bukauskas here, 8,500 for Bukauskas on DraftKings versus Marcin Prachnio, 7,700 on DK for Prachnio here, coming off of his win. I'm on Prachnio side. I think 7,700. I don't love him for DFS, but I do think this is a fight where volume could play the key in a guy like Prachnio. And I think he's going to out volume Bukauskas, whose issue is mainly volume. Yeah, he's younger, everything like that, but I think he's going to get behind on the scorecards. And I think Prachnio wins like a 29-28 decision here. I don't know if it's the most exciting fight for DFS, so I'm going to be lower on it for DFS. I'm not going to have any real Bukauskas. Might have a little Prachnio just because 7,700. If he did find a finish, he's going to be optimal in that scenario here. If it's a decision, like I said, 75 to 80 probably doesn't get it done for optimal on this card with 14 fights. I don't think at 7,700, but you never know what happens. So yeah, low DFS fight for me, but I'm taking Prachnio by decision. Dan, what about you?
I've actually got Prachnio inside the distance. I think what it comes down to is both of these guys, for DFS at least, they're both reliant on a finish, and both can be hurt and finished. And I just favor Prachnio to ultimately find the finish over Bukauskas because he's got better volume. He's got the slightly better striking defense. Bukauskas, man, just like when I think of him, I just think inactivity. It's like he just kind of goes in there and doesn't do shit. Prachnio is quite a bit older. It's like 6 years older. Probably a little bit more wear and tear, so that might play. It's a heavier weight class, so that's not.
Break out your age model, Dan. Break it out.
Not the most concerning, but neither of these guys look particularly inspiring or good. But as far as DFS goes, they're both going to be hovering around 10%. I'm really not interested in Bukauskas. It's mainly a price thing, and because I think he loses. I guess he's a pretty good. Like, he rates out pretty well for me, but I think I'm just gonna go ahead and mush him. So take that for what it's worth. Like, that blows up in my face sometimes, but I feel fine getting at or below the field. A little more interested in Prachnio, though 7,700 is on the higher end of like the 7Ks. So he's probably going to need a pretty good score. Odds imply, you know, he wins inside the distance 24% of the time. I have more interest in Prachnio for sure, but I'm not going to go crazy trying to get over on him. Like, I think probably the most likely outcome is a bit of a boring kind of point fighty big guy slog.
Yeah, I mean, Bukauskas, it's not like he's like knocking people out left and right. Like, he's got what, 7 fights in the UFC. I think his first fight was a KO win. All the other fights were not. Like, he hasn't finished. So like, it's not like he's coming in knocking people out. It's probably because of the lower volume and stuff like that too. He just like does nothing when he's in the cage. Christine, what do you see with this fight? And do you agree with the Prachnio side?
I agree that Prachnio is definitely a live dog. I actually like him in the spot as well. I just think that Bukauskas, I mean, his better path to victory would be to utilize his grappling and all of that, but he hasn't landed a takedown in the UFC. But Prachnio, most of his fights, he's been taken down. So there's that. He definitely has the edge on the feet. He has better striking volume. So I think that I definitely see this going over 2.5. For me, it would be Bukauskas by KO or Prachnio by decision is how I see it. I think Bukauskas has better cardio. He's been in 5-round fights before. And then Prachnio's cardio is questionable. He gassed out in the Lins and Clark fight. And Bukauskas is also chinny, but he can, you know, outlast a couple of rounds. And they've both been 4 to 5 KO losses. So I think there might be a finish here if you pick Bukauskas, but Prachnio, I can actually see it going to a decision. I think the 7,700 price is a little high for what I think he can produce. So for DFS, I don't really like Bukauskas for DFS, but I do think Bukauskas is probably going to win. Prachnio is certainly a live dog, though.
Yeah, I think just with the low volume of Bukauskas, I worry less about Prachnio gassing out. Because, like, if you're not, like, pressuring at all, right, pushing a pace or anything, like, you don't have to return, right? So you can just stand there and trade when you want and then move around a little bit and then trade. So it's like kind of it's set up, I think, perfectly for someone like Prachnio, even with the maybe cardio concerns. So, all right, we do like Prachnio here by decision. I'm pretty sure all 3 of us are on that. Let's go to the next fight. We got Colin Loughran, probably said that name wrong. Loughran 8,700 versus Jake Hadley 7,500. Which one of you fucking laughed? I want to know. I heard it. I wasn't looking at the screen, but I heard one of you fucking
I didn't mute it.
Which one? Damn it, Christine. That's it. Christine's going on a 15-second mute timeout. Dan, did you laugh too? If you are, you're going on a 15-second mute timeout too.
I kept it on the inside. I kept it.
Okay. All right. That's fair. All right. That's fair. Christine's back. It's been close to 15 seconds. All right. You can laugh at me. It's fine. So Dan, I'll throw it to you first here with this fight. Loughran 8,700, Hadley 7,500. There's going to be a size difference. You know, Hadley's, I mean, pretty small compared to Loughran. I don't like Loughran at all, but I think with the size difference, I think he wins this fight. But I'm not a fan really of either of these guys, but especially him as a favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to disagree with you. I've got Loughran by decision. I just think Loughran is better in the striking, wrestling. He's, you know, I think he's probably physically stronger. He's got better cardio. They're both like reasonably durable, though Loughran does absorb more strikes and hasn't gotten knocked out. Also of note, Hadley is a short notice replacement and also missed weight. Hadley just and he's up. This fight is up at 135 because Hadley has been missing weight, I believe, at 125. Still missed weight, going up a weight class. Just not a whole lot to like about Hadley outside of his grappling. I think if this fight, if he can get into a dominant position on the mat, he's got a chance to sub Loughran. But yeah, I mean, Loughran, he's just got, he's more powerful. He's got quicker hands. He's got better volume and pace. And he's like a relentless wrestler. When you watch his last fight against Pacheco, who's not very good, but when you watch him against Pacheco, he's like a bulldog, man. He's like a little bulldog that just like on a bone that just will not give it up. He's just constantly going for that. And I don't think Hadley can keep up with that pace. Like he can throw up a submission, and catch him, but that's really his best only path to victory. Like his takedown defense is extremely poor. His takedown, he doesn't get takedowns. He can't wrestle for shit, man. He's got a 6% takedown accuracy in the UFC over now like 4, 5, 6 fights, I guess. Yeah, and I backed Hadley last time out against Charles Johnson, which we got to put Charles Johnson with, Dalby and whoever else that we just don't like respect enough and like dogs out these wins. But that's kind of like the overarching point is like Loughran, he's better in a lot of spots and he's just a dog and Hadley is not. So I much prefer Loughran. They're coming in at Loughran's at 32%, Hadley's at 14%. And I think that's right. I think 32 might be a little high. I think the ownership is accurate, but I think Loughran might be a little overowned, but I can also see him just like absolutely smashing.
Yeah, for laughing at me, Dan, I'll just throw this one in there that I was on Charles Johnson against Jake Hadley when everyone else was on Hadley. So
I remember
that's fine. I was on energy, but the one thing that, and I agree, I think Loughran wins a decision. I actually agree with your take there. The one thing that I just don't love is the Pacheco fight. You talked about it, how he was relentless wrestling. Well, the first round, he didn't wrestle at all. He actually stood there and tried to bang with Pacheco, and he ended up bleeding from the nose after round 1. And he was the one bleeding because he literally just stands in front of you. Like there's no, like, he's not like spectacular, when he's trading and stuff like that. He looked good, though, when round 2, after 2 minutes of standing in front of Pacheco where he was getting pieced up again, he said, screw this. Now I'm going to the wrestling. And then he went to the wrestling, and he had a major advantage over Pacheco. And that's what ended up really winning him the fight overall. But he didn't do that to start.
Mid-fight adjustments.
I'm just saying, though, he didn't do that to start, which to me was crazy because you had a guy in Pacheco who was pretty much like a boxer. Like he pretty much just wants to stand in front of you and trade. And you had a massive advantage, and it took you almost a round and a half to utilize that that advantage. But Christine, are you on Loughran as well at by decision?
Yeah, I like Loughran as well. I do think Hadley is live. I don't like that he missed weight going up a weight class. It's something weird there. I don't know what it is. Maybe he overdid it trying to go up in weight, but it just doesn't make sense. But he is on short notice, so there's that as well. Loughran's a decent striker, but Hadley has an advantage, I think, on the feet. Loughran will definitely be going for the takedowns. He's averaging over 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. But the problem with him, sometimes he does nothing with his position. Depending on what the judges are weighing more heavily, like he's going to need to be more active on the mat. Striking wise, too, he does pack a punch, but he's not a high volume output striker. He's not as precise as Hadley, and Hadley's a little taller and longer. But Loughran, on the other end, on the mat, he's short, he's stocky, he's muscular. I think Hadley has the better cardio, but I think Loughran's going to take him down. Hadley has really bad, 36% takedown defense, and he gets taken down an average of 2 times per 15 minutes, and he's allowing over 30% control time to his opponent. So statistically, Loughran definitely looks like he should get the win here. For DFS, 8,700. Everything seems too high because you know that there's a lot of high-end fighters that can score really well. I think it's okay at 8,700 because he will get the takedowns, hopefully rack up some control time. And Hadley, I think I'm way under on him.
Yeah, you made a good point too. Like the reason why Hadley accepts the control time pretty much is because he's so comfortable off of his back. He's trying to use his grappling, his jiu-jitsu, because that's his best path to win a lot of the time. So, yep. We're all on the Loughran side, 8,700. Dan, is there any like crazy ownership? I mean, I think Loughran's a good DFS play just because of the takedowns and the control time upside that he could have in the spot.
Yeah, I've got Loughran projected for 32%, Hadley for 14. And like I said before, I think that's about right. Might be a little high for Hadley, but you know what? Like, he's not a bad mix him in at the bottom option just because he does have submission upside. I just, man, I think like Loughran's biggest weakness is his striking defense. And I just don't think Hadley really has like the power to necessarily take advantage of that.
It's definitely his biggest weakness. Like, I don't know how you couldn't watch the last fight he had and tell me it's not. Like, it's clearly his biggest weakness is his striking defense. But do you guys think Loughran goes the distance? I do think this fight goes the distance here. So yeah, I'll be looking at the decision prop here. I'm not betting the minus. What is he? Minus 230, I think. Yeah, he's minus 110 by decision, which I don't love those. Like, I don't love betting on minus 110 by decision, but that's probably what happens.
10, so
yeah,
not much meat on the bone there either.
I don't know if I'm betting that either, just to be honest with you, but I do think it does go to decision, honestly. All right, let's go to the next fight. We got Brana Brazil, 7K for Brazil on DraftKings versus Meatball, Molly McCann, 9,200. God, gotta love the Meatball nickname. It's one of my favorites, honestly. Christine, I'll throw this one to you first here. What do you think with McCann in Brazil?
I was going to crack a joke there, JSU, but I like you, so I'm not.
You should have done it. You should have done it. I like jokes.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe you identify with the whole Meatball thing.
That's fine.
No shade, but kind of.
A little shade. It's
fine.
I'm
sorry. What was the question?
Who do you like in this fight?
I like Meatball, you know, and what I failed to mention before, and I'm sure you guys talked about it, the hometown cooking. So for Jake Hadley, that's another reason why if something happens, it's because he's from there. And same with Molly McCann. And obviously the UFC loves her. You know, she's a powerful boxer, big combinations. She's shown that she is really good everywhere. You know, we've seen her sub Belvita in round 1. We've seen her with that amazing spinning elbow knockout. And Bruna Brazil is pretty hittable. She's not very powerful. She doesn't pressure. She does throw a lot of leg kicks, but her striking defense is no good. She's not really good on the mat. She's not shown to be impressively durable. Like, she's been knocked out before. She's been knocked down. She's gotten hurt. She's been knocked out 3 times. So I'm really low on her. And Molly, she is a pretty decent DFS target. You know, she can get a finish here. She historically scores well on DraftKings. I like her maybe over 1.5, but I do think she can get a finish.
Yeah, I definitely think there could be a finish in this fight. You know, I'm a little higher, I think, on Brazil than you. I just think the way Brazil fights, where she's very patient, she wants to counter strike you pretty much. I think she has more power than you might give her credit for too, with some of her strikes. And I think it's kind of a perfect matchup for a finish because McCann is going to go at you, especially here, right in England. Like that, she wants a highlight finish. She wants a knockout. She's going to go, the crowd's going to be pumped up. She's going to go in for it. And I think it could set up for her to get countered and maybe hurt a little bit by Brazil. So I do give Brazil more of a chance than you might give her credit for, Christine. But I do think there's a finish in this fight. So maybe there's something we could go at with like an inside the distance prop or something like that. Maybe submission. I just feel like McCann's going to want to try and like get a knockout here. So I just have like that feeling that she's going to go at, but I think it sets up well for Brazil, even though she might not be like as talented as McCann. I don't think she's that far off, honestly. I think they're pretty close talent-wise, to be honest. They're just different fighters. One's a kind of sit back and wait, and one's a move forward. So that kind of sets up for maybe a collision where someone goes down. Dan, what do you think here with this fight?
I couldn't disagree more with the skill levels being the same. I think Molly is much better than Brazil in just about every area. And I think Molly's style, like her striking style, just come forward and hit you, works really well against Brazil. And you saw that. Like Brazil wants to kind of like sit back and counter and do like kind of point fighting shit. She's like another one of these fighters that just suffers from like an appalling lack of activity. You're watching them and you're like, do something, like you've gone through months of training camp to get up to this moment and go bounce around in the fucking octagon for 15 minutes. It's infuriating to watch. And like, if you watch her in the Denise Gomes fight, Gomes has a similar kind of style as McCann, just like a bull, like just comes right at you, is aggressive, throws heavy shots. And Brazil got her fucking ass kicked, Denise Gomes eventually gets her to the mat and just ground and pounds the shit out of her to the finish. And I think you're going to see something very similar here, if not some kind of club and sub from Molly. Like Molly got armbarred by Stolyarenko in, I believe it was her last fight at flyweight. She's down at strawweight now. And I think that was like a really like big eye-opening moment for her. Like she got submitted by an armbar from guard, which is just about like the most rudimentary submission that there is. It's like day one jiu-jitsu, like get out of this type shit. I think that was really embarrassing for her. She went back, she kind of like reassessed her game. She decided, I'm going to drop down to strawweight, going to start taking this a little more seriously. And she's been working on her wrestling and ground game. And you saw it last fight, like Deanna Belbita, not a world beater, on the mat or anywhere by any stretch, but she picks her up, she slams her down, she submits her. She's clearly been working on that part of her game. And I just think like everything is in McCann's favor here. Like, I think she's back, refocused. You see a much better version of her. I think we're going to continue to see a better version of her every time she comes out. I think she's awesome.
Yeah, I think I didn't realize the TKO prop and the submission prop were this far off. Molly McCann by KO TKO plus 215 on DraftKings. Submission props plus 650. I always like to go with the bigger props. So submission prop.
How fight will end by knockout. It's plus 175 on BetMGM.
Yep, plus 180 on DraftKings.
I left my phone in the car, so I can't get into my DK right now.
Yeah, plus 180 by a TKO, like plus 400 by sub.
Method prop, right?
Yep, the exact method prop.
Yeah, so. I think that's solid.
Yeah, but I'm saying if you like the McCann finish, I think plus 650 is a nice little that's a fun bet, I think, for someone like her. Because like Dan said, it could be a club and sub type thing where she gets on. So yeah, all right. I'm gonna be a little higher on this fight for DFS because I think there's a finish one way or the other. So I kind of like both girls at their price tags. Dan, it seems like you're gonna be pretty heavy on Molly. And are you going to be out on Brazil? Or is she a fade for you?
So I don't, 14 fight card, I might end up fading some fighters, and she is probably, she's probably going to be one of them. She was one of the, when Boynton asked me earlier for a 20 max fade, she was the first one I listed. I think she's probably the worst play on the card. She rates out well for me. This is another instance where I'm going to like be ignoring my numbers and mushing her a bit, but like they're very leverage focused, and she's only coming in at 9%. I think she might even come in lower than that. I just have I have very little interest. I think she gets steamrolled. If she if she wins and is optimal, then it's on to the next week.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely have a little more than probably her projected ownership if she's gonna only be like 8% or something like that. Christine, where are you at with this fight? Are you just in on one fighter, or are you gonna be in on both?
I am most likely going to be very low or fading. I'm sorry. I'm going to be over on McCann, and I'm going to be very, very low on Brazil, if not fading Brazil.
Get in there on the fade. Join the club. You and Dan can hold hands together. Fade in Brazil.
Well, I mean,
I will
even
not
if
fade her at 7K.
I don't think she's going to score well. She's 7K, and I'd rather, if I'm going to do that, I'd rather play like Pineda. For less
but
than
everyone's going to rather play Pineda.
Crosby, Blaydes.
Well, what do you think she's going to score, though? That's the.
If she finishes, again, like I said, I think this fight finishes. So I think this fight
How do you
finishes.
think she finishes her? Sub or knockout? You think she subs it?
Sub. Yeah. That's why I like the sub exact method prop at plus 400, because it could be either way, honestly. But I do see it probably playing out on the ground. As much as I think that McCann will try and knock her out, I think eventually it's going to go to the ground, whether she gets knocked down and then it's just to the ground from there and see what happens. But like you said, Molly McCann's been caught in submissions before, and I mean, Stoliarenko is known for the armbar, though. So do we really do you discredit her a ton for something like that when a fighter is just known?
It was really bad, man. It was really bad.
Go back and watch
it. She not only doesn't defend it, she does the exact opposite of what you should do. She practically rolls into it. It's
into it. Yeah.
Very bad.
All right. Well, there you go. Exact method sub prop, Dan. Get on it. It's plus 400. All right, let's go to the next fight here. You guys making fun of me for my Brazil play. That's fine. I'll be on an island. Daniel Pineda, Christine's favorite fighter. Yes, she got knocked out by Denise Gomes. Christine, you don't have to keep reminding me.
Also taken down 3 times. I just don't see why you think she would sub Molly, but
okay, well, we'll see. Molly's been sub before. Dan brought it up.
Yes.
I was trying to defend Molly. I'm no longer defending her now. Daniel Pineda, 6,700. Christine's favorite one-round fighter versus Nathaniel Wood, 9,500 for Mr. Wood here. This is one of those fights where everyone's going to say the same thing. Pineda's got 1 round in him. He has finishing upside. He's dangerous. Might be more dangerous in the beginning of the fight than Nathaniel Wood, but Nathaniel Wood's got the better cardio. Nathaniel Wood's still got finishing upside. Everyone's going to give the same take here that they're going to play some Pineda because of the finishing stuff. I just think Nathaniel Wood is been hurt and shown, toughness and stuff like that, and been able to then hurt someone back and kind of go through that, where I think he can get through the round of danger. And once he gets through the round of danger, I think he finds a finish at some point in this fight here. So I'm going to go with Nathaniel Wood. I'm probably going to be under fading Pineda in my lineups at 6,700, but I get it. If you like Pineda, probably finishes in the first round and a half, I would say. So Dan, what do you think here with this fight?
Yeah, you broke it down well. I mean, I feel like I've said this a couple times for some fights on this card about certain fighters, but Wood is quite literally better everywhere. He's much younger at 145, which, Pineda, the age shows, especially in the speed. Pineda has zero quickness. All of his shots, they're coming in heavy, but he's loading them up and telegraphing them. You see him coming from a mile away. So Pineda is theoretically dangerous in the first round. Anyone can get knocked out, obviously. We have seen Wood get hurt. Power's the last thing to go, et cetera, et cetera. Pineda's implied 11% to win in the first round. That's essentially his win condition, his first round. I think out of that, it gets extremely thin and dicey. So, given that, I'm happy to get to around like 15, between like 15 and 20% of Pineda, because he's only going to be like 12%. You don't get much leverage off that, though, because Wood on the other side, I really like playing Wood because he's only going to be 23%. He's got some of the better inside the distance numbers on the card, especially first round. Obviously has great win percentage. The problem there is, or not so much the problem, but people are going to be going like pretty all in on Aspinall from what I can tell. Like Aspinall, I have Aspinall projected at 43%. I think that's pretty low. I think he's probably going to be closer to like mid 50s, 60s. It's going to be really hard to fit both of them. But, for Blaydes lineups or lineups where you're fading that fight entirely, which I don't necessarily recommend, Wood is basically the next best option after Aspinall up in that range, in my opinion. And he's going to come in over owned just because of the pricing dynamics. So if you can find a way to get Wood in the same lineup as Aspinall, that's going to get pretty thin pretty quick. But if you're playing a good amount of Blaydes and you've got Blaydes and Wood together and Blaydes wins, like you're going to be sitting pretty for sure.
Yeah. So Steven just asked, is Pineda a better bet than DFS play?
What's the price on Pineda?
So he's like plus 1,000, I think, for a KO or something like that. Submission props up there too, I think. Plus 1,000.
I see round one at 800, plus 800. That is. Yeah, I mean,
round one's plus 800.
Round one for Pineda, yeah, plus 800 at least.
By knockout, 800? No, it's 1,800.
No, that's just round one.
Oh, just round one. Okay, so you get both. Yeah. Okay.
It is probably. I mean, it's hard to say better bet or DFS play. I mean, it's like the same probability to happen, right? So
plus 2,000 plus 2,000 round one by sub for Daniel Pineda. I don't think that's crazy. He's got a pretty slick grappling game if it gets down there. If for some reason it gets down there, like he's pretty slick down there. But
I would probably lean
I don't know.
DFS.
Is it a better? I feel like it's kind of similar, right, Dan? Is it a better bet?
Yeah, I guess I would lean DFS play just because if he does win, he's optimal and he's going to let you fit in a lot of the top end, which is going under owned because people don't want to play the garbage at the bottom. So, I mean, you can win your Daniel Pineda bet for however much, plus 800 pays out to you, or you can have, Pineda in the optimal lineup and be chopping 200K.
Yeah, that's a good point. So probably a better DFS play. Christine, what do you see here with this fight?
I like that take, Pineda by sub. He's definitely stronger on the mat, and he's an opportunistic submission grappler. And but outside of his grappling game, and that's if he can even take Pineda, take Wood down, hold him down, and get the submission. I think that's going to be difficult for him because Wood is also a good grappler. He's got 19 of 28 wins by submission. Pineda has 19 of 28 wins by submission, but Wood can also grapple with him. They're similar in physical size. Obviously, he's more of a striker. He has wins on both ends. So he's got submission and KO wins. He has better conditioning. Unfortunately, he was finished in 4 of his 6 losses, but he's fought a better strength of schedule. Wood has been knocked down a couple of times, but again, I don't think Pineda's the one to exploit that. His striking's decent. He mixes in leg kicks, but Pineda, his cardio is questionable. He tends to fade as the fight goes on. So I think Pineda's live early. I do like the submission early. But I think if it hits the second, third round, I do think Wood is live to finish him in any type of way, to be honest. And I like Wood round 2, round 3 for bets. And I will definitely be over on this fight for DFS. The inside the distance line is minus 210 last time I checked. So it's definitely a high probability for a finish here, and I think we should be playing both sides, or I should be. I will be.
Yeah, like that 2 or 3 for Wood is definitely interesting. All right, let's go to the next fight here. Don't think as much of an interesting fight, but maybe I'm wrong. You guys could tell me I'm wrong. We got Arnold Allen, 9K for Allen here against Giga Chikadze, 7,200 on DraftKings for Giga. I don't like this fight for DFS. I think that from a betting aspect, I like Arnold Allen. I think Arnold Allen wins a decision. I think he might need to employ some wrestling and some takedowns into this decision. But I see it kind of one of those fights that I don't really get why it's on the main card, because I think it's going to be boring as hell. Honestly, it's there for name value, I guess. But I don't think it's going to be like a super exciting fight. Could be wrong. I'm going Allen by decision. Dan, what say you?
I also have Allen by decision. Yeah, on its face, not the most interesting fight for DFS, mainly because of Allen's price at 9K. He hasn't recently. He hasn't been involving takedowns or any wrestling in his game plans. So that has definitely stifled his scoring upside, because it's mostly striking, and it's mostly low volume striking. I think probably the best his best numbers. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong page here. I mean, obviously his best numbers came from when he fought Max Holloway. We're not going to ding him too bad for getting pieced up by Max Holloway, like the best striker.
I don't think we should ding anyone for getting pieced up by
But
Max
still,
Holloway.
5 rounds against Max Holloway, and you land 76 strikes. That's that's not what you want to see. On the flip side, I mean, obviously Giga isn't looking to employ any wrestling or grappling, but I think maybe Allen should. Allen has showed solid wrestling. He held Movsar to, I think it was 5 of 17 takedown attempts. He eventually got taken down because Movsar is an animal and just keeps coming at you. But he showed moments of very solid takedown defense and decent wrestling. So I think there is a pretty massive wrestling advantage for Allen if he chooses to use it, which is always the big X factor. It's you can know what a good game plan for a fighter is, or you can think and then they just won't do it. But I think Allen at 14%, he's another one of these guys who's very likely to win, but is going to go overlooked because of his historic scoring. But I think the matchup dictates that Allen should be a bit more active. And I think especially matchup specific, Giga wants to dictate, he wants to dictate what happens on the feet with his kicking game. He uses a ton of kicks. He uses kicks to establish range. They're very quick. They're very powerful. The best way to neutralize a kicking game like that is to get up in your face and pressure, which Allen, despite not throwing much when he does it, he does have a pressure style. He does take the center. He does back you up. So I think, with Giga coming back at him knowing that he needs to have a more pressure style, I think there are more opportunities for Allen to score well in this fight than there have been in fights past.
I like it. Good breakdown there. Christine, what about you with this Allen Giga fight?
I like Arnold Allen too. I like by decision. I think that's a good method. Allen was undefeated for a while. He lost to Evelev to start off a little of a what seemed like regression, but not. He's a southpaw. So Giga and Allen are both southpaw, and Giga's one of his most impressive. One of the things that he's really known for are his leg kicks. The Giga kick, the liver kick. And the fact that Allen and him are both southpaws, it's going to make it a little more difficult for Giga to get the kicks. He can try to attack his calves maybe, but it's harder for him to attack the lead leg when they're both on the same stance. Allen is rangy, he stays out of range. He stays out of range enough so that he can come in from the outside. Giga is more like down the middle line. He does have more volume output, a lot of combinations, but Allen is sharp and effective with his jab. The issue I have with Allen, sometimes he needs to push the pace. Like he kind of tends to be a little more meticulous. And I think against someone like Giga, who has, better striking accuracy and puts out more volume, he has to keep up with him while also keeping distance. And he needs to check those leg kicks, my number one kryptonite with my people I back. He has
I think that's a good point. I think that's why Allen will eventually start using the wrestling in this matchup, is when you got someone who's got such good kicks as well, and leg kicks especially, right? Like Dan was kind of talking about, you want to be in their face, you want to be out of kicking range, or you want to be like attached, right? You want to be grappling, clinching, wrestling, right? Because then he can't kick you. So like essentially you're annulling the best thing that they have, which is the kicks. So maybe it does make him a better DFS play in that scenario, like Dan was talking about, because if that is his game plan and he does, use the wrestling, then he's probably going to score better than what he's done in the past.
If he doesn't utilize his wrestling, he's going to give Giga the fight that he wants.
Right.
It's the best game plan for him. The question is he going to do it? And what does that look like? Because Giga's takedown defense isn't bad, but it's not his strong suit. And Allen is a lot stronger there. He also has great takedown defense, but where Giga is strongest needs to be taken out of his grasp,
Yep,
So
I like it. We're all on Allen.
Just one more thing.
Yeah.
Just one more thing to note, just like this is a little narrative-y, but like just a little bit of like context where Allen's mind might be at. It's like when he lost to Holloway and lost to Evloev, like before that, he was on the ascent. He beats Yusuf, he beats Hooker, he beats Qatar, and he
was like undefeated for 7 fights or something like that.
The Hooker fight, especially, super impressive win. He just like comes forward, starts swinging with him, like brings it to him, knocks him out, which knocking out Dan Hooker is no small task. He takes Qatar gets injured, but he's on the ascent, and then all of a sudden he runs into Max Holloway, which we're not going to fault him for. He has a really competitive fight with Evloev, which I don't think you can fault him for too much. I think he's going to come into this fight like he was going from being talked about as a contender for the featherweight belt to kind of being, your name is mud. Even that fight with Evloev, Dana probably didn't watch the fight, but he comes out at the press conference and, starts trashing the fight, starts trashing Evloev, who won. So like, what does he probably think of Allen? I think Allen, he probably knows this. He's still young. He wants to be in title contention. And I think he's going to come out and try to like put on a fucking undeniable performance and just come and run through Giga.
All right, there we go. We're all on Allen. B3 says, not so much Giga whooping that ass. We'll see. 7,200 if you like him in DraftKings.
Giga's live. He's live for the knockout. He's got powerful kicks. So I think he's a good punt down there, but I'm not going to be going overboard trying to get to him. I'm like happy to mix him in kind of at like where the field's going to be mixing him in.
Yeah, I didn't love the way he looked in his last fight either. I'm probably out on Giga, but he is cheap. Let's go to the next fight where I think we should all be in on a little, of this fight, because we've got Gregory Rodriguez, 7,900 for RoboCop here against CLD, Christopher Leroy, Duncan, 8,300 for Duncan here. I'm on the Duncan side of this fight. I think this is a fun fight. I think both these guys are going to end up training. One's got the more power, I think, in Rodriguez, where the other one's more technical, but both can strike. And I think we see a knockout one way or the other in this spot. So I'm going CLD by knockout, 8,300. I think for DraftKings, if you're building, multiple lineups, not just like one or three, then you probably want some of both these guys, because at their price tags, they're probably going to score pretty well in a finish for either one. So that's my take. I'm going CLD. Christine, what do you got here with this fight?
I like CLD too. I think that he's precise. He's effective. G-Rod is RoboCop as he throws with a lot of power, but he also takes on damage. I think there's one thing about him that you can't unsee when he had like the giant gash in his head where you could see his skull essentially. And he wears his damage on his face a lot. His striking defense needs some work, but he does have 10 wins by knockout. He doesn't use his grappling, but he does have 3 wins by sub. CLD also has decent grappling, but also underutilized. So I do think it's going to take place on the feet. CLD only has 1 loss by decision. I think he's at a great price for the potential finishing upside. I do think there's going to be a knockout in this fight, and I think it'll be by CLD. But for 7,900 for G-Rod for similar upside, I don't mind it. I'm not going to have too much of him, but I don't think you should fade him.
Yeah, I don't think this is a fight where you want to fade either of these guys if you're building a ton of teams. Dan, what about you? What's the ownership and who you got winning?
Yeah, this is a great fight to target. The ownership, I've got CLD at 34%, got RoboCop at 28%. I picked RoboCop inside the distance. I could really see this going either way. What did it for me is I just think RoboCop is far and away the better grappler. He's the much more dangerous grappler. And he also has really solid striking. And so he can knock you out. He can submit you. I don't think CLD is going to be able to submit RoboCop. So I think if it goes to the mat, I think RoboCop has a massive advantage there. Duncan's wrestling isn't very good. He's had takedown attempts stuffed by Dennis Talulin. I had another. Oh, and he went over shooting on Armin Petrosian. So,
hey, we're not dissing Armenians on this show. Not gonna happen.
Petrosian's got some skills. Petrosian's got some skills, but takedown defense historically has not been one of them.
That's a good point.
Cardio, Rodriguez, he can be hurt, and he certainly has more accumulated damage. So that is a pretty big concern. But he just has that dog in him, and CLD seems to kind of not. Like, I don't know what it is about these Cage Warriors guys, but they seem to sort of wilt under the bright lights of the UFC. I don't know why, but Cage Warriors guys always seem to underwhelm and disappoint. And CLD just kind of, I don't know what it is. I just don't really like him that much. He's certainly live to land a knockout because, RoboCop can be knocked out. Again, a lot of accumulated damage. But I just think when it comes down to it, RoboCop's got that dog in him, and he's got more ways to win. So I'm taking RoboCop.
Just throwing this out there. I think both guys lost to Petrosian, by the way. Just throwing that out there. RoboCop, I'm pretty sure lost to him too. So
they did. However, RoboCop got him down twice. So
that's all right. Armin still won. I'm throwing it out there. I'm throwing it out. He's definitely the better wrestler. I'll give you that. He's definitely the better wrestler, and I think he's got more power. You make a good case for Rodriguez, and this is a fight that I flip back and forth on. I don't. What I feel confident in is I think it finishes. I'm not as confident on who the actual winner is. So I see a lot of people in the chat like G-Rod. I think he could easily win this fight. I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's a fun fight for DFS. That's why I will not fade either guy in this situation because I think someone's going down. But
yeah, I don't particularly like CLD. Like I said, like I'm not a CLD fan, but like I'm not looking to get too under on him. I'll probably be like high 20s about. So it's a great fight to target both sides.
Yeah. All right, let's go to. We got 3 more fights left on this card.
Who did you guys pick for Makhaev and Cobb? Who did you?
Dan's got Kopp and I've got Makhaev.
Okay.
Yep. Why, do you have a take? Do you want to give it real quick?
I'm very on the fence on that one. I do think Manell Kopp something. I do feel like he can pull it off, like deep down. It's going to be close, but I think that Makhaev is kind of like a one-trick pony type of fighter. and I think Cop can catch him, but
all right, so you like Cop. You like Cop a little bit. All
yeah,
right.
yeah. Okay, yes, I will plant that flag.
You're on Dan's side. That's fine. Let's go. We got 3 more fights here. We got Bobby Green, 8,200 for Green against Paddy Pimblett, 8K for Paddy Pimblett. These are 2 fighters that, honestly, I've went against multiple times in the past. So it's a fun fight for me because I'm finally going to be on one of these 2 guys, and I'm heavily on the Bobby Green side. Like as much of like Bobby Green, at least I know what he is. He's got good takedown defense. His stand-up game, it's not like he's got that one-punch power, but he's got that awkward style that when guys get in, you can tell after the first like 2.5 minutes of a fight if a guy isn't going to be able to figure Bobby Green out or not, because it's just when he's not touched and moving around and just kind of dancing, screaming at you, barking at you, whatever he does, it kind of gets in some people's heads. It's just style's awkward, and he finds ways to just stop what you're doing and then show out his own on the feet. And I think that's just going to be too much for Paddy, who I just view as the worst striker for sure. The only thing he has on Bobby is he's got better grappling. Bobby's got better wrestling if he wants to use it. I don't think he will use it. Because why would you against a dude who has the grappling? Even if you're on top, it's still just not a good idea, in my opinion. If he just stuffs the takedowns and stays on the feet, I think he pieces this dude. I think he pieces Paddy up. I know Paddy looks good. Looks like he's in really good conditioning and shape and stuff like that. Bobby Green looks good. So I think it's Bobby all day. I like him as a bet.
You mean King Green, right?
I don't call anyone King, so I will call him Bobby. Or I'll call him
he
Green.
changed it legally, JSU. It's his name.
I
don't give a shit. I'm not calling anybody King. All right. Unless you win me $1 million. If you win me $1 million, I'll call anyone who wins me $1 million King. Outside of that, no fucking way.
I'm gonna snitch on you. I'm gonna tell him on Twitter.
You can let him know. I call him Bobby Green.
Like Chris Curtis. He'll give you the Chris Curtis treatment.
He can call me whatever he wants. Okay, I'm gonna call him Bobby Green. He can call me JSU, Johnny, whatever he wants to call me. I don't give a shit. Christine, who you got here?
I like Green here as well. I think.
Notice she didn't call him King, by the way. I'm just throwing.
I don't want to call him King either because I think he's crazy. And he rubs me the wrong way. He's kind of like icky. But that being besides the point, he's a great boxer. I think he pieces up his opponents. He's quick. He has a really powerful jab, and that jab has wrecked people in the past. He's got great head movement, which will serve him well against Pimblett, who is not a great striker, but I think Green's striking defense is going to really help him against someone like Paddy, and Paddy's striking defense is going to be a real problem for him against someone like Green. He does have some leg kicks. It's going to be tough for him, who is a more solid wrestler, to get Bobby Green to King Green down and to keep him down. And that's going to be an issue for him as well, because even if he does get the takedowns, I do think Green will be able to scramble and get up and rinse and repeat on the feet. I think that he's going to have, if in a decision, which I do think this will go to decision, I think he's going to have the volume. I think we're going to see damage on Pimblett. And he doesn't, I think even if he does get him down, I think it'll be taxing on him too. And I think Pimblett has questionable cardio. And I think Green is very durable. So I do think Green is probably going to get this by decision. I think there's going to be a lot of strikes here. I like the bet over on DraftKings. It's Bobby Green over 84.5 strikes at 115. I like that. I think he's just a heavy volume, quick jabbing striker against Paddy, who does not defend strikes well. And I think even though his grappling is excellent, I do think that he's going to have a tough time against Green, who has underrated grappling because he doesn't really use it. But it's not to say that he doesn't know how to defend takedowns.
All right, there we go. Bobby Green, 2 for 2. Let's make it 3 for 3, Dan. Come on.
I told myself I was going to be the only tout / person making content this week to not fuck up and call him Bobby. So King Green, elite striking, man. Just like King, several levels above Patty in the striking. It's not even close, but let's break it down anyway. Better technical boxing. He's quicker. He's more powerful. Better volume. Better defensively. He's got, which I'm sure you guys already mentioned, he's got that style. Keeps his hands at his sides. You don't know where the punches are coming from. The grappling, I think Green is more than capable of dealing with whatever Patty has on the ground. Like, we can't discount that Patty, he's still relatively young, and he should be, theoretically, he should be constantly improving. So, like, it's not outside the realm of possibility that Pimblett's going to come in with a better grappling game and maybe submit Green, but I personally would be really surprised. The wrestling, I think Green is straight up a better wrestler than Patty is. I think Patty's wrestling is dog shit. And again, unless he's massively improved it in the time away, I don't think he's even going to be able to get Green down. Size and strength. Patty's got a reach advantage, slight, but Green has plenty of experience dealing with fighters with a better reach. And just to circle back to like the wrestling and grappling, Green's last time out against Jim Miller, Jim Miller, obviously far and away a better fighter than Patty Pimblett in just about every aspect of the game, I'd say. And if you watch that fight, I mean, Green does get dropped early, but he recovers really well and then proceeds to just turn Jim Miller's face into meat. And then there's one point, like, Jim Miller doesn't attempt a single takedown. He doesn't like try any grappling exchanges, but it is part of the game plan because in between rounds, you hear Jim's corner saying like, you want to get close to him, like grapple with him, take him down. And, he gets that instruction. We know Jim Miller is like smart. We know he will stick to a game plan, but he just goes out there and he couldn't even get close enough to Green to even attempt a takedown, even though that's what he wanted to do. So I don't know if Jim Miller couldn't do it. I'm highly skeptical that Patty can do it. And
Jim Miller would be like the worst matchup for Patty Pimblett because right. You would know the grapple yeah. 100%.
He's everything Patty isn't. And just one last thing. I always like to look at this. So I went on the DK app and they'll show you like the percentage of bets placed, who they're for, and 70% of the bets are currently on DK are for Patty, and yet the fight is still lined as nearly a pick'em. So that should really tell you something. I think we're getting a really good price on King Green here because Patty takes on a lot of money because he's popular with casuals, and I think that people are a bit wary of potential fuckery from the judges. So I think that's priced in a bit too.
Yep, that's a really good point though. But money coming in on Patty, but the line is still for Bobby, even though it's close. It's still for Bobby, so that's got to tell you something. I like that point. We're all on Bobby. Let's go to the final two fights here on the card. First one up, we got Tom Aspinall, 9,400 on DraftKings versus Curtis Blaydes. This is a rematch from when Tom Aspinall hurt his knee. I'm pretty sure it was his knee. In this fight, and it's I think Aspinall's one loss technically, or in the UFC. Is that right too? I'm pretty sure. But it wasn't a loss. We don't know who would have won that fight. But he ended up losing that fight. So this is technically a rematch here. And Dan, you were talking about it. You said that Aspinall was going to probably be the highest owned fighter on the card. I think it's in the 50s. Ownership wise, he comes in at personally. So I do think people load up on Aspinall. I do think he's the rightful, favorite. I don't know about the line. I feel like the line's a little wide personally, but I do think Tom Aspinall does win this matchup here. I just think Tom Aspinall is the best in the world right now at that division. Like I think Tom Aspinall against John Jones, I think Tom Aspinall wins. I don't think John Jones wants to fight Tom Aspinall for one reason. He's like the first guy who I think outside of John, like, he's got both. He's got everything. Like you want the wrestling, you want the grab. Like he can do all that shit, and he's got power. So on top of it, he's got that power. And everyone wants to bring up Curtis Blaydes and the wrestling. The guy hasn't used his wrestling in 3 years. Like I don't understand. I throw that out. Like, yeah, okay, he's a great wrestler. He hasn't used it in years. So is he going to use it randomly against Tom Aspinall, who also has wrestling? I don't know. I think he knew in that last fight, Curtis Blaydes, that Jalton Almeida was going to come out and take him down, and he'd get up and take him down, and hopeful that he'd get tired, and then he'd find a way to finish. I thought that was probably like a game plan. This spot against Tom Aspinall, though, is different. I think Tom Aspinall will be able to do whatever he wants. I think that he ends up finding a finish probably in round 2. I don't think it's round 1, but I do think it's probably like a round 2 finish here. For DFS side, I'm fine with having both, but the fact that I think Aspinall wins and inside the distance, I think he's obviously the better play. But Blaydes, he's still got a chance, I think, where you could have some of him. So, Dan, I know you're going to like Blaydes here for some DFS. What about as a bet, though?
I like Blaydes as a bet. This line is far too wide. Yeah, I mean, Aspinall, all indications are that Aspinall is the real deal. I'm definitely not trying to say that he is not. Like, he looks fantastic. His movement for a heavyweight, the wrestling, presumably the grappling. He's been training jiu-jitsu since he's 8 years old. His dad is a jiu-jitsu coach. So, I mean, all indications are that all the skills are there, but we haven't necessarily seen it because he hasn't had to use them. Like, he's just wasting people very quickly or getting injured to Curtis Blaydes. So there are, as sure as we can be that Aspinall is much better than Blaydes in all these areas, we don't exactly know for sure. We don't know how he's going to react outside of a third round. We don't know. We just don't know. I mean, in the meantime, since he got injured, he wastes Marcin Tybura, which, not surprising to anybody, not necessarily an indication of greater wrestling or grappling skill because, he just booped him and put him out. Sergey Pavlovich, we saw a little bit more there in that he's one of the only people, maybe the only person we've seen take that Pavlovich death touch right on the chin and not immediately go out. And he hardly even got wobbled and then came back and knocked Pavlovich out. So it all looks very good, but he hasn't been tested by someone with Blaydes' wrestling acumen. And Blaydes' I know people are kind of down on Blaydes' durability because he's been knocked out a few times, but the people that have knocked Curtis Blaydes out, Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis, Sergey Pavlovich. How much are we really going to knock Curtis Blaydes for getting knocked out by those guys? And he was winning the Derek Lewis fight to begin. I just think Blaydes is much more alive than anyone is giving him credit for. And it's interesting because this fight was lined as basically a pick'em the first time they met. And now Aspinall has come out and, solid win over Pavlovich, sure. Waste Tybura, but that's all we've seen of him. We haven't seen the true depth of his game, and now all of a sudden he is a 4-1 favorite. So the line just seems excessive. So while I've picked Aspinall, he seems like the real deal. I think the odds Blaydes pulls out a win here are much higher than the betting markets are showing or that anybody really wants to give him credit for.
All right, Christine, what about you? Do you agree that Curtis Blaydes is a good bet here?
He's a good bet, and I think he's definitely worth rostering in DFS as well. I agree with everything that you both said. I think that Blaydes should not be completely ruled out. Aspinall he's very quick for a guy that weighs 260 pounds. And but Blaydes, I mean, he is probably one of the best wrestlers in that division. And, his path to victory will be the wrestling, but it's more about him outlasting the fight. If he can somehow avoid Aspinall knocking him out, and like you said, he hasn't been outside of the first round, outside of 3 fights, made it to the second round, and he lost 2 of them. So his cardio is definitely questionable. We don't really know what he looks like in later rounds against someone like Blaydes. And so if Blaydes is able to avoid getting knocked out as early, I think he could be live. Like we don't know. I do like Aspinall here. Obviously, his speed and strength is outstanding. He's the sharper boxer. He's got proven power. He's a one-shot done type of fighter. But I don't think Blaydes should be ruled out. I think that in later rounds, he definitely has a good chance of getting top position, grinding on Aspinall, and Aspinall might not know what to do with something like that. I know he is training with people that are similar stature to him, but Blaydes is something different, and I don't think in that position he will fare well. But I do think Aspinall will win. I think round 1, round 2 by knockout.
Yeah, I think Curtis's path, he definitely needs to try and wrestle. That definitely be the way to go if you're on the Curtis side. You hope that he tries to wrestle and it's effective early here, and then see what Tom has later on. So yeah, we're for DFS too, I'm probably going to end up, Aspinall's going to be shoved. Like if you're running like optos and stuff like that, like Aspinall's going to be shoved. So I think
Aspinall below.
Yeah. Like I think doing some manual adjustments and trying to get over more on like the guys just below him, like Wood and McCann, in that 9K range, and maybe getting more of like the McCann Wood side of the 9K range and going under on Aspinall, and just hoping that like somehow they could even if Tom does score 100, 104, 105 and gets a knockout, maybe Molly McCann and Nathaniel Wood score 110, and in that scenario, they're optimal and Tom isn't, even though Tom had a really good outing, it just wasn't enough. So, that could easily happen here, where it's a quick knockout, but he only gets like 104, like the past couple fights, and maybe he's not optimal with that scoring at that price tag. So I do like going a little under, but let's go to the final fight on the card here. I feel like it's a fight, like I said in the beginning of the show, where it feels like everyone's super split, and whatever side you're on, you're like 100% certain the other side is just completely wrong. So I do love it. Hopefully we fight about it a little bit. We got Leon Edwards, 8,800 on DraftKings versus Belal Muhammad, 7,400 on DraftKings. Dan, you talked about the ownership. I know you were saying it in the Discord. You think that Leon's ownership is going to come in pretty low for a main event fighter champion, right, at 8,800, and you think Belal is going to be pretty popular. I agree that Belal's probably going to be higher owned than Leon Edwards. I just don't know if Leon's going to be like low. Like I think enough people are split where like, especially too if you're using an optimizer, because I think it's going to give you the reverse of what you're saying for leverage. If you're like running sims or anything like that, the leverage is actually going overweight on Leon and underweight on Belal. And I think the sharp people are going to end up going like if they lock this fight, they go 60-40 or 70-30. Leon being that 60-70 and Belal being the 30 to 40% owned. I like Belal to win. I think that his pace, his pressure is something that is going to end up winning him a 5-round decision. Leon, when you watch Leon fight, even the Colby fight, like Colby looked awful and he didn't finish Colby. And then whatever Colby said about his fight, I don't know about injuries or anything like that. I mean, Colby looked terrible, but like Leon, how don't you finish someone in that spot? Like, that's where you got to just go for the kill at that point, and he didn't. The Usman fight before the Colby fight, the second Usman fight, I thought he clearly won, but I also thought like he kind of won and just, he stayed safe almost. Like he's like, okay, I'm just gonna win a decision, like almost like he knew it, and to me, I think Bilal's going to bring a different game plan than those other two guys did, where Bilal's going to force him to go for it, I think. And if he doesn't, then he's going to be in trouble against someone like Bilal. So I think the pace and pressure is what gets him through and wins a decision here. I know a lot of people are on Leon. That's fine. I'm going to be betting Bilal myself. Could be wrong here at the end of the day. But Dan, who do you got in this fight, and what are you doing for DFS?
I've got Leon. I just think, let me say here. Yeah, Edwards has the better. He's obviously got the better striking. Like, he is an elite level striker. I don't think Bilal can really hang with him on the feet. Like, sure, Bilal has like the pressure style. He's going to try to get in Leon's face, but I just think Leon is too precise, crisp, technical. Like, he is going to piece him up. I think he also has really solid takedown defense. He showed it in the last Usman fight. You can say what you want about Usman being, washed, knees shot, whatever. Fact of the matter, Edwards still went out there and defended those takedowns, came away with a decision win. Muhammad does have, I think he does have slightly better wrestling, but I'm not sure it's going to be, I don't think it's like that much better where it's really going to move the needle all that much in this matchup. Both have solid cardio, both have solid durability. I just much prefer Leon. I think Leon is just, he's the much better striker. And I think he can hang with him. Like, I have the grappling as more or less of a push. Neither guy's really much of a submission threat. They're both very solid defensively. Edwards, I actually prefer, like, when he gets into the clinch, he lands really good clinch strikes, and he lands like some really nasty strikes on breaks as well. So I think, Bilal is going to try to get up on him and clinch on him. And when they break, Leon's going to make him pay. I think Leon also has a really good shot of knocking Bilal out. And yeah, I mean, I think we've pretty much said, we've said pretty much everything. I think Leon is going to come in horrendously under-owned. I have them projected at 28 and 27%. I think Muhammad is likely to come in higher than that because, like you said, I mean, we've got 2 5-round fights, which is always an interesting dynamic. It doesn't appear that the field is going to be double shoving them. So you know what that means. Fucking shove them. If people have
shove this fight.
I think, so, yeah. And like Edwards, the knock on him as a DFS play is always going to be like, he doesn't have enough volume, not enough activity, like doesn't have, doesn't look to grapple or wrestle offensively. And all those things are true, but it's similar to not last week, but the week before when we had Rose and Cortez in a 5-round main event, and people didn't want to play Rose because she's low volume and doesn't look to grapple or wrestle offensively really. But on the other side, you have Tracy Cortez, who does look to wrestle. So when you have an opponent that's looking to wrestle and grapple you, and you have solid enough wrestling and grappling to keep up, like Bilal is going to be forcing more exchanges. Like, it's not going to be a replay of the Colby fight where, Bilal's not going to be circling to the outside, not doing shit while Leon just kind of picks him apart. He's going to be forcing the issue. He's going to make Edwards work far more. And I think, 8,800 isn't exactly super, it's not a prohibitive price for a 5-round favorite. And I think the most common construction, people are going to get funneled if they want to double shove the 5-rounders. They're going to get funneled into Aspinall Muhammad builds just because of price. And I think there are definitely Aspinall Edwards lineups. Like, there are plenty of those that you can make, and even better Edwards Blaydes lineups that you can make. So there are a lot of options here. And like we talked about before, I think Aspinall's bust risk in an extended fight, especially, obviously, is a bit higher than Edwards is. at the end of the day.
All right. There we go. Dan's on Edwards. I'm on Bilal. Christine, break the tie here. Who you got?
I like Edwards here as well. I am. I think that where Bilal is strong, I think Edwards has underrated grappling, and he's obviously been working on that. He's made some upgrades to his game on the mat, and he's gonna, if they're on the mat, he's gonna try to look to take the back. But I think that knowing what type of fighter Bilal is and seeing how Edwards fought in the past, when people try to go for the level change, he tends to, hit them with a knee real quick. So he's going to expect that, and he's going to try to make sure that doesn't happen. But I think his grappling is underrated, and I think he'll be able to get out of grappling exchanges with Bilal, even though Bilal is, fantastic at it. I think this fight will primarily take place on the feet, though. And I think Edwards, as he always does, he's going to work behind this deceptive jab. He's going to check the opponents. He's got a powerful left cross. His kick, he likes to go up high. The head kick KO is legendary. He is also explosive. Knees. He's, as Dan said, the clinch game is really, really good. And I do agree with what you said with the volume, but he doesn't throw out volume because he's more meticulous. He reads the situation, and he's a great counter striker. What he likes to do is go over the shoulder and counter, and it's very effective. And we've seen it with Colby Covington, and also with Colby Covington, he had some takedowns against him in that fight, even though people will say Colby didn't look so great. And I also agree with people being under on this fight. They're going to think it's low volume, which his fights typically are lower volume. But I think on both ends of it, if Bilal is successful here, he's going to monopolize on that, and he's going to continuously rinse and repeat takedowns, control time. And on the other end of that, I think Edwards is going to have to meet him where he's taking the fight. So on the mat, we could see them both getting takedowns here, and we could see a lot of control time. And with 5 rounds, we can obviously see a lot of striking and a lot of volume. So I wouldn't be under on this fight. I like that strategy, going over because the field will be under because they think it's low volume. I think that's sharp, and I agree with that.
All right. I like it. Both of you guys on Leon. I'm on the dog, Muhammad here. Leon, I think, still like right around minus 250, 255, somewhere around there. Bilal plus 210 dog as we sit here. All right. Let's give our favorite bet of the day before we get out of here. Dan, do you have a favorite bet for the people?
Yeah, I'm going to give 2 because earlier I let the first one slip. I can't believe my favorite bet of the day is a guy named Preston, but Preston Parsons money line. You should be able to get that around like 160. I think he rolls. And then my other one, King Green, minus 114. It's going to beat the shit out of Patty. I can't wait.
Stole my favorite. Christine, you got a favorite bet for the people?
You're muted.
You're muted. We almost went the whole show.
Damn.
All right.
I missed it earlier, but my dog pick of the week is going to be Alderene. And I like her to win by decision. That's plus 450. I also like the over 1.5 for her to win at plus 250. Her money line is plus 154. And another bet I like outside of the dog pick, I'm going to go with Manell Cop by knockout. Let me see what that is.
I like your first bet. It's plus 500 on FanDuel. Plus 500 Manell Cop by knockout on FanDuel.
Manell Cop knockouts plus 450 on DraftKings.
So Bobby Green's the best bet. That I'll just throw that one out. That's an easy one though. Dan gave it, so I will give one more, and I'll go with Muhammad. I'll go with Bilal Muhammad plus 210. Get a little dog action in there, and I honestly just think the number. I think it's too wide, anyways. Like I think it should be closer. I don't think it should be in the plus 200s. So I think that's good value at plus 210 there. So I will be taking a shot on that for my best bets. Everything else, guys, all the bets, everything, runpuresports.com, RPS 15 or RPS 15 for 15% off your first monthly or weekly payment. I'll have all the bets posted up on the site. Dan, I know, dropped his ownership sheet, and we got the chart up, the core plays, ownership, all that stuff will be up on the site here soon. So get in now, RPS 15, and let's win. Let's win some money here today. Hopefully I win a little bit more money than you guys, since we're on different, sides of a lot of these fights. But, if you guys,
I got all my RPS gear on. I have my hat. I have my shirt.
Yeah,
so we're shipping something today.
Pull that hat down for a quick second there.
This is literally one of my favorite hats. I freaking love it.
I love that hat. I don't even have one of those hats. Who gave you that hat? Big T?
I got it on our website, JSU. Come on. It's a dad hat. The dad cap. Thanks to Big T and Amber for adding that for the ladies. But men can wear it too, but
I don't even have one of those. See how they treat me? It's bullshit.
Do dads wear dad hats?
I'm
Where's
not a dad
merch?
yet, but I mean, where's
Tony has this elite RPS shirt. I literally will troll every single pod. He ignores when I tag him. I want that shirt.
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's easy. Just you got to go all the way down into the basement, and then there's a side room in the basement, and there's just gear all in this like room in the basement. There's tons of gear everywhere, and that's where they keep it. So
it's already
I
too
know
hot
where to go.
on the East Coast these days. I'm not even trying to go west. It's like 90 to here today, JSU.
I know it's hot out. That's why I got my dog walk in early. Me and Reg went for our early morning walk today. We had to get it in before the heat. But all right, I gotta get my
watching. Definitely get the hat. It's sick. And
see, we got merch. We got merch on the site too. So check out the merch store. Yeah, and let's finish strong here. All right, for Christine, Dan, and myself, JSU, RPS 15 is that code. Get in now. Check out the merch. We'll see you guys next week. We're out. Good luck.